You're in the rant wormhole where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by becoming one of them. This one is for Jaunt Ron, who says, rant about the age of consent. The age of consent is a funny fucking thing because of the fact that it is different all over the world. And, like, where it should be seems fairly arbitrary. I don't know if it just depends on the society and their values. Like, I think in America, pretty much the reason that the age of consent is 18 on, like, a national scale, because it's not that way state by state, is just because that's when high school ends. Like, generally, people tend to finish school when they are 18, and I just think that we don't want a lot of, like teen pregnancies going on. Like, we don't want people fucking when they're in high school because it causes problems, and if we can minimize the incentive for, well, it's also very easy for older, people to prey on younger people to sort of trick them or coerce them into sex, to lead them astray. So, like, even if high schoolers are going to fuck, which we know they are, I think we would prefer that they fuck each other and not older people who can manipulate them more easily, even though high schoolers are already manipulating each other. So, whatever. But, it's just easier for older people to manipulate younger people, so we try to keep them away from it, Especially in this modern world where people are reaching emotional maturity later and later. So, it's like, it's difficult to even imagine, like, say, like a modern 15-year-old, having sex with somebody, like, who's in their 20s, because, like, it's like that younger person probably hasn't achieved the emotional maturity to be able to, handle that relationship the way that we would hope that they would, with some degree of health. Not that adults even enter healthy relationships most of the time either. Like, again, it's like you could argue this every which way, from every which angle, about, like, whatever different age. I mean, I think it's a pretty good idea to keep it post-pubescent. If we're going to have a age of consent, it should certainly be after the point where most people have experienced puberty, so that they actually are capable of sexual activity in a healthy fashion. But, like, where does it fall? And, like, I think a lot of the reasons the rules have been set differently in different places, again, it's about sort of social, I don't want to say control. It's not so much about controlling the population as guiding them to make better decisions. In a lot of places, the age of consent is lower because of the fact that there are fewer people completing a full education and more people who, are being encouraged to sort of start a profession younger, start a family younger, or, who have opportunities that, like, as if we're talking very traditionally, like, as a woman being married off to a man, like, used to be that happened when girls were like 15, 16, because of the fact that there's really nothing that growing up further is going to help along with that, with being a wife. Like, you can do that just as well at that age as you can later. But, like, if we're talking about in the modern world where we want people to have more complex lives, where women are not just expected to be some guy's wife, we might want them to do a little more growing up and be a fully formed adult who's going to be, ready for the fact that the average marriage only lasts 7 years in this country, So it's a it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing, this age of consent, and I guess that I don't mind the existence of one, Do I think 18 is the ideal age? I mean, again, here in America, I think just the fact that 18 is when you graduate, tends to be when you graduate high school, is the reason that it is that. And it does kind of make sense that way. Now, again, there's a lot of states that are different and stuff. Sometimes it makes no fucking sense, like in Virginia. The age of consent is technically 15, but also technically having sex when you're not married is not legal, but you can't get married until you're 16, but you can legally marry at 16 in Virginia, but then it's not technically legal on a national level. So I suppose that if you took it, I don't know, to the Supreme Court with a case, would Would they have to rule? I really don't know. I don't know if that just falls on the state to make the decisions. I don't know if those kinds of cases would ever reach a national court. I have no idea. But, like, it is intriguing to just see the way that different places handle it and what their logic might be. I guess if there's anything that bothers me about the age of consent, it's just, like, how strident people are about it, that, like, people have internalized it as, like, a moral code, that, like, having sex with somebody who's under 18, like, is just absolutely wrong because of this one thing, this rule that, this number determines who you can or can't have sex with depending on your age. Like, the idea that let's say a 20-year-old high school senior, or he's 20 years old after, back it up, an 18-year-old high school senior is dating a, let's say, 15-year-old from the same school, and they have a happy relationship, and they keep it going after he turns 18. Well, now she's 16. Technically, he can't legally fuck her anymore. And then let's say that relationship keeps going. It's like, are they going to go from being sexually active to just putting it on hold until he's old enough? I guess, like, that's weird, It's like, it feels as though this shouldn't be something that people can use to sort of take advantage of it, because again, in that situation, let's say that eventually these two have a falling out, and then she can go to the court and say, like, oh, this guy who's 19 and I'm only 17 is having sex with me, and I don't like him anymore, so let's get him thrown away. I don't know if that even happens. Maybe there is leniency in these cases, and I don't even know, because I haven't studied any court cases on the subject. But, it just seems like this idea that just because this is what the letter of the law says means that it's one size fits all, always correct. I think that's a little ridiculous, But at the same time, who is to judge what person is mature enough to make their own decisions about sexuality? It's really not for anyone to decide. So having that number there, like, at least gives us something to go on, like, it gives us some kind of just, all right, we're just making this a hard and fast rule so that we don't have to try to deliberate on who is or isn't mature enough to handle this stuff. But then, it just leads to, if you create a hard and fast rule, there's always going to be tons of holes, where people are falling through the cracks in this because of the fact that people who would be mature enough at a younger age, can't, and people who aren't mature enough, even though they are older, can. But, you just gotta wait a couple years. It's no big deal. Like, if let's say that you are 20 and you're in love with a 17-year-old, you can wait a year, man. You don't need to have sex, I got away with not having sex for like 23 years of my life, and I'm perfectly fine. So, it's the kind of thing where it's like, take it or leave it, I guess.